Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope all well doing. Welcome to a new video tutorial from iPinWest. Today I'm gonna create something really nice, you're really excited about, which are actually the pop-ups using native JavaScript and the DOM, obviously. So I'm gonna use CodePen for this job, and here you go. You can take a closer look on the demo that we're gonna create eventually. So here's the architecture of the pop-up that we're gonna create, or like we're gonna give it the actual code, or give it the actual power in order to make it works using the JavaScript. So this is actually pop-up only using HTML and CSS. So it's gonna have like a pop-up header and a pop-up content, hello there, from the other side or something like that, a button like an OK button and a cancel button. You can interact with the pop-up, and as you can see the background in here, so it's everything like in gray. So to make it looks a little bit more sophisticated, it looks a little bit more as a pop-up, and there's like the inner container which is in white. So here's like where you can interact with things. So what are actually pop-ups, if you're not already familiar with, are some kind of like a CSS and an HTML and JavaScript kind of pop-ups where you, let's say, lets you interact with your web pages more, or way much more better, give your user way much more better sophisticated experience. So let's say he wants to change his username or something, or let's say for a more simpler example, he wants to delete like something really important from the web page, and he clicks on the delete button. So to make sure that he wants to, or to confirm that he wants to completely delete something from that web page, you show him a pop-up like that. It pops in with like this background as well, with this gray or dark background, in order to make him know that this is a pop-up, or this is like everything is in behind this pop-up, and this pop-up is showing up as the first thing. And you tell him, are you sure you want to delete or something like that? He click OK, yes I want, or cancel if he just like mistakenly clicks the button, and yada loads of other things you can use the pop-ups for. So as you can see, this is the demo. It's not working actually in how we can click whatever thing. It's not working at all, since there's no JavaScript code in here in order to make it work. So there's like a very simple HTML and a CSS code like behind the scenes that makes this pop-up works actually, and we can get this really nice look and feel. Make sure like you can go ahead and create your custom CSS in here, but this is the best thing. So this is like how pop-ups gets laid out. You make sure to have like a header, have a content, and the footer, which obviously, or like most of the time, is gonna have the buttons that lets a user interact with your pop-up, like the OK button or the yes or the cancel button, and yada. So yeah, make sure to have like the same structure, because this is the most friendly or user-friendly architecture for the pop-ups. So let me just walk you through on the HTML and the CSS to let you know how everything actually works and how everything is tidied up. So this is like the container. The container is holding the whole page in here behind the scenes. There's the pop-up container. So the pop-up container is the container that we need. So the pop-up container is holding this dark background as well as this white container in here. So both of these are under the pop-up container. The inner container is this white. Is this actually white container. So the pop-up container has this dark background. I'm gonna talk how we can create, or why we do that in the dark background in order to make the user experience looks way much better. And the inner container actually to let the user interact with your pop-up, or tell him, or let him add, or like change something, or confirm or cancel, or whatever you are actually doing with your pop-up. And this is like the inner container, which is the white area, or the white area. And we have like a header. This is one, the pop-up header, the content that you want to tell him, the text or whatever, the image, and the footer, which holds two buttons, the OK button and a cancel button, with a custom CSS styles to make it looks a little bit better for you to see. And like, you can use that however you actually want on your projects. So here we have like the body in HTML takes the full 100% width and height, and 0 padding and margin in order to make it the full, or in order to let the pop-up takes the full width and height, or the screen sizes. And the container is actually width and height, so this is the main container. Now for the pop-up containers as well, it takes the width and the height, because as you can see here, this is the whole container. It's the dark background as well as the white container in here. So width and height full are both 100%. The display is flex, so we are using the flex display. So why we use the flex flex display, it's more flexible. It's give us like the functionality in order to create a custom styles, or in order actually to position our elements however or whatever we want on our web page. So make sure to go ahead and check the Flex design, Flex CSS design if you're not familiar with already. I have a video tutorial and a written tutorial about that, so you can just go ahead and check it out. You have like a code pen examples you can really understand from this video tutorial. So make sure to go ahead and check the link description below, or just go to iPaints.com, search for the CSS Flex box, and you are just right there. So let me just talk to you about that. So the flex direction is column and center, so just allow us to center everything. And the most important part is the Z index. Why we set the Z index into a higher number, most likely the 99, because we want the pop-up to be or to show up above all the other page elements. So the pop-up is like the most upper thing on the page. So that's why we set the Z index. So the Z index like determines which layer is above which other layer, and so on and so forth. So make sure to like allow your pop-up to be the first one or the top on this layer stack. So your web page is kind of have layers and stuff like that. So make sure to the pop-up is on the top. So that's why we set it in a higher number, most likely, or we usually do the 99 number. So the inner container, which is the white area in here, so all we do is just give it like some custom width and height. The display flex as well in order to allow us to position our elements however we want. We have flex direction to columns, so which means each element is and any other elements. The background is white. We have a box shadow in order to make it looks a little bit more better, and we have the padding and a border radius, so to make the container looks actually a bit nicer. And how we have the header, so we're just gonna give it some style, the contents as well, the footer, the button, and yada. So this is like it's all about the styles in here. It's very simple. I'm gonna edit this style in a second because it's gonna allow us actually to hide or actually toggle between hiding and showing this pop-up. We're using the JavaScript. So the first thing you're gonna need to do from the JavaScript in here is actually allow us or like reference this container. So in order to be able to show it or hide it. So let me just show you this one in a little bit. So we need to reference the container, which means we need to get the element, the whole thing. Remember, the whole thing is having a class called pop-up container. So gonna be like pop-up container equals documents dot get element by class name, and I'm gonna give it the class name, which is pop-up container, and it's gonna give us like an array. So we need to access the first one since we have only one element, and this is all we need to reference. So as you can see, it's very basic thing. Now what we want actually, and we haven't added to our web page yet, is the button. So we want to show this pop-up whenever we click a button. Is gonna be like on our web page. So we haven't created that yet. So let me just go ahead and create that. It's gonna be into the container in here, so just gonna make sure to create it on the top. So it's gonna be a button, and I'm gonna give it a type of a button, and like show pop-up. Very simple thing. So this is gonna be like the button. It's gonna be very simple, as you can see here. Show pop-up. Now what we want, let's go ahead and hide this pop-up, so we will be able to toggle between showing it and hiding it. So to hide a pop-up, what we're gonna need to do is the visibility attribute on the CSS. So we set the visibility to hidden in order to hide whatever element, or to visible in order to show any element, as well as the opacity. So therefore make sure that always that the pop-up container is actually the main container. So we're gonna say visibility equals to hidden. So it starts in a hidden mode. So whenever you start your web page or something, the user won't be able to see the pop-up unless he clicks on the show pop-up button. And also make sure to set the opacity into 0. So we use the opacity in order to make the CSS transaction or CSS animation. I'm gonna talk to you about that in a bit. So whenever we like finish about the toggling and we go into the CSS animation step. So yeah, now as you can see, we have got that hidden. Now what we want is whenever we click that, we need to show up the pop-up. So therefore, let's just go ahead, and also we need to reference this button in order to be able to assign the click events on that button. So BDN, I'm just gonna call it, let's just go with like trigger BDN, short for the button. So you're gonna equal to documents.get elements by let's see, it's gonna be elements by class name. And I don't know, let me just go ahead and assign a class into this one. So it's just gonna be a class, and I'm gonna like go ahead and just go ahead and name it BDN for now. You can name it whatever you want depending on your like HTML structure. So BDN, I'm just gonna grab the first one, and here we go. So now we have the button. So in order to show that, what we need to do is actually be able to whenever we click that button is like assign the click events on this button. So we just go with trigger BDN dots on mouse click. So there's like a ready-made DOM events listener, which is on mouse click. So on mouse click, which you need to assign to its JavaScript function. I'm using here an arrow function. Make sure to use the bubble if you're using CodePen. So make sure to just go ahead into settings and choose Babel from the JavaScript preprocessor. Actually, I'm sorry for that. Preprocessor. Yeah, I totally spelled it right. So make sure to go ahead and choose it from the list over there, Babel or bubble, or whatever you say it or you call it, and you are actually good to go. So here you're gonna have an event. And now what we need is to actually use the pop-up container. So container dot style, we need to access the style and we need to show that. But let me just go ahead and create two separate functions that are gonna help us to either show or hide the pop-up. So therefore we're just gonna like show a pop-up, create a function to show a pop-up, and also another function to hide a pop-up. Show hide pop-up. It's gonna be the same thing in there. So here we're gonna access this one dot style dot visibility equals to visible. So showing it means we set this attribute into the visible, and also we need to set the opacity into 1. Okay, now the same thing goes for that. Let me just go ahead and copy all of that in order to make it simpler for us. So here, hiding, we just set the hidden and we set this to 0, and everything should be pretty much fine. Now, whenever we click it, what we want is to call the show function or show pop-up function. Okay, here we go. Now, let's just go ahead and save that. As you can see, pen saved. I don't know if that actually is working fine or no, but it should pretty much show. Okay, so we have style, we have visibility in here being set correctly. Let me just copy that and put it in there in order to make sure that everything is pretty much working fine. And just go ahead and refresh that. Sometimes CodePen is stuck like that. If it does that for you, make sure to go ahead and refresh it manually from the button up there. And we have trigger button on mouse click. Let me just go ahead and for testing purpose in here, so I'm just gonna go with console log. Just click. Sometimes you get that, and the console log is the only solution for you. So just go ahead and make sure to console something that's gonna allow you to see whether that is working or no. So we can just go ahead and see the console right away. So now as you can see, whenever we're clicking, we're not getting anything. And trigger on mouse click, something is wrong with this, I think. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and see that again. I think the function might be a little bit confusing. So on click, as you can see, we get the click. So the function is not on mouse click, it is on click. I sometimes forget about the DOM custom events functions or custom callbacks, but yeah, here we go. So the on click function is working, but it's never showing the pop-up over there. So there has to be something that we need to do for that in order to be able to show the pop-up. Now actually, if you try to press the button, as you can see, we press the button and here we go. We get the pop-up above all of the other elements, and we get the button actually in the background, but the pop-up shows up the top layer. So yeah, it's very a nice thing you can create and you can manage up here. So now we need to hide the pop-up. So hiding the pop-up, what we want is whenever we click outside of that, that means outside. What I mean by outside is clicking outside of this white area. So the white area is the user interaction area. So whenever we click outside of that in the dark background in here, we need to close that. What you can do else of that is go ahead and create like a close button in here, just like a cross icon in here. Whenever the user clicks this, the pop-up gonna hides up, or you can go ahead and do the cancel button. Whenever he clicks the cancel button, you need to hide the pop-up. So, but let's go ahead and do that very quickly. Whenever you click in the background, we need to hide that. So clicking the background, what I mean is clicking the the pop-up container. So we need to check if we are clicking the pop-up container, all we're gonna need to do is just hide the pop-up. So go for the pop-up container dot on click equals events, and we're just gonna use an arrow function in here. So yeah, now we need to check. So if you can take a look in here, let me show the pop-up. So whenever we click that, that means we are clicking two things. So as you can see, the architecture or the HTML structure in here, we have the pop-up container and the inner container. So we want whenever we click only the pop-up container, not the inner container. So, and since the inner container is a child of the pop-up container, that means we're gonna have a problem. So whenever we click the parents, we also gonna get the click events on the child as well. So we need to prevent that using an if statement. So we need to check. So that's why I have added in here data.js equals popup. So this attribute is going to allow us to check which elements we are clicking and which elements we are not. So we check later on if the data.js attribute exists under the pop-up or under the elements we are currently clicking on. So that means we are clicking on the current or on the right elements, so we can hide the pop-up. Else, if that doesn't exist at all, just like omit that or ignore that. We don't need to hide it because we are not clicking on the right element. So therefore here we need to use an if statement to check that. So we need to use e.target. So we need to use the event and the target. That means we are accessing the currently clicked targets, and there's like a specific DOM attribute. You can go ahead and check the documentation for that. So it's called the attribute, which is an array that holds the whole attributes of this elements that we're currently clicking. So it's attributes, and there's like a function called getNamedItem. So getNamedItem, and here this function takes which attribute name we need to get. So here in our case we need to get the data.js, and this is like only for checking purposes. Now we need to get the actual value. So first we check if that attributes actually exist under that. If it does, now the second check is we need to check if the value of this attribute is equal to popup. So there's like two checks in order to like make our application error or free of errors and free of unhandled exceptions. And here if it equals to popup, so if you can take a look in here, it does equal to popup. So we need to make sure that the same. So if it does, so all we need to do is call the hide popup function in here, and this is all of it. So we need to just go ahead and call the hide function that we have, or hide popup function that we have created, and everything should pretty much work fine. Now if you can try to show it up, if you click outside of that, and as you can see, we get this hide it away. So try to show it again. Now if we try to click on the white area, as you can see, we try to clicking, there is nothing, we're not getting hide of that. If we try to click on the dark area or in the background, as you can see, we click that, and here we go, we get this hide out of the box. So just a couple of checking and using the onClick function on the right element, we can achieve the functionality of hiding the pop-up by just pressing the background. Now if obviously you can go ahead and just go ahead and click, if you try to click the cancel button, we can hide that as well. So if you can take a look in here, as you can see, it has a class called btn-cancel, so we can reference that as well. Let's just go ahead into our code, JavaScript, and cancel btn equals documents dot get element by class name. So we can reference that by class name since we have the class name, and since there's only one button, you can use more sophisticated query selector in here by creating your own custom attributes, or using the more better way, you can use an ID, and you can create, or you can do a lot of things in order to get the right elements that you really intend into. So here we need to get into cancel button dot, we need to get on click function. So whenever we click that, all we're gonna need to do is just call the hide pop-up. So here we go. So the hide pop-up, now whenever we click that, we get the hide pop-up. If we try to press now show pop-up, we click that, and here we go. So we click that, just click the console button, and here we go. Now if we try also to reference the OK button, so which is going to be documents.get elements by class name, and it's actually called button dash OK, and we need to reference the first one. Now if we try like OK button on click, what we want is just for testing purposes, we're gonna show him an alert telling him yay, thanks, okay, thanks for pressing me or something. Okay, simple as you can see. Let's just do that for fun in here. Now if we try to press the show pop-up, we click the OK button, and here we go, we get like browser alert, yay, thanks for pressing me or something. You can do any functionality you want with that, and in the right structure you can do loads of things with the pop-up. So as you can see, pop-ups are a very simple thing and very easy actually to understand. All you're gonna need to do is manage the CSS alongside the HTML structure. Make sure to put your elements in the right way alongside each other. That's gonna help you a lot structuring your pop-up, and help you a lot getting a really nice, sophisticated and flexible pop-ups showing up above each other, and showing up actually on the top of the layer stack of your web page. And also you can just go ahead and create a custom buttons in here in order to control the pop-up way much more better. So that was actually, guys, for the pop-up. It's a very simple thing. Make sure to go ahead and just go ahead and check this out. CodePen is gonna be free for you. You just go to the link description to my website or the recent tutorial. You can go ahead and check this CodePen and play with it. You can copy the code, you can use it on your own project. It doesn't really matter, but make sure to just go ahead and understand, or really carefully read through the whole source code in here, the whole CSS style, the whole HTML structure, the whole JavaScript code, in order to understand how actually everything is structured and how everything is tied up in order to work together. So yeah, that was actually the game. Thank you guys for watching. I really hope you all enjoyed for this video tutorial, and I will catch you all in the next video tutorial.